Greetings and welcome to this episode of Bring It On. My name's Bob Hayes and I'm going to be your show host for today's show. I have Jeff Szymaniak, the new superintendent of the Whitman Hanson Regional School System with me today, and we're going to talk a little bit about what goes on in Whitman Hanson and what happens day to day and week to week and year to year, and we're going to get the new superintendent's take on it, and we hope that you're watching and you like what you hear today. So Jeff, thank you for coming in.
Absolutely, I appreciate the invite.
Well, it's good to see you, and I'd be remiss if I didn't remind the viewers that I am the chair of the school committee, and we have a lot going on this year at Whitman Hanson, and that's some of the stuff I'd like to talk about today.
Great.
So they know what's going on.
Great.
But first, let's talk about Jeff. Jeff, give us a little bit of background.
Okay. Well, I think many people know that I've been the principal of the high school for 8 years, but prior to that, I think I've held a lot of positions in education, but I'll even go back a little bit further. I live in Pembroke. I have a wife and 2 kids, a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old. They keep me pretty busy, but I grew up in the western part of the state. I grew up in Chicopee and ended up coming out to the South Shore, which is, it's a great experience to be close to the ocean. I started my career in Abington as a long-term substitute. So when I say I've been in a lot of positions in education, I was a substitute teacher. I was also a tutor for Whitman Hanson in 1995, tutoring kids that were out on medical leave. So that was a challenge. I was lucky enough to be hired in Scituate as a history teacher and an alternative education teacher. I started an alternative education program in Scituate and then became an assistant principal there. I served as a football coach and a softball coach. I was a peer leader. I was a SAD leader. And then I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to lead a school, which I went to West Bridgewater Middle Senior High School. Great school of 600 kids, very challenging, dealing with middle school students and high school students in the same setting, but gave me great experiences in the whole student. And in 2010, there was an opening at Whitman Hanson, and I had the pleasure to meet with you and the superintendent, Gilbert Whitner, and you offered me a contract, and it's been a great ride at the high school. I think in 8 years, we've done quite a few things. So a little bit of background on me, that's who I am. I'm all about kids. I'm all about progressive education and fairness, equity, and relationships with people.
Great. And it seems like you've come through the whole educational process from starting as a substitute teacher, and that leads into a lot of what being a superintendent in a school district is, where you need everyone looking up to you and looking to you to be the leader. Do you think all of this background, as you just stated, gives you a better look at what a superintendent should be?
I think absolutely. It's given me life experience. So I know and back in the day in 1994, 95, I was making $45 a day as a substitute teacher. I know how hard it is to work for not a high wage. I know what our substitutes go through. I know what our teachers go through, because I was one. I know what our building administrators go through. So I have boots on the ground, and I've learned how to work with people. I know what their roles have been, and I think that's helped me in my leadership of really building those relationships and having the respect for the people that work and make the system run.
Well, in your 8 years at Whitman Hanson, because you came to us in 2010, correct?
Correct.
And so you've been here, this will be the start of the 9th year, so to speak, because school district years, people get confused. It's easy to do. It's the budget year for 17, 18.
Right.
Wait a minute, it's 18.
I'm always a year ahead, right?
Right, it's 18, 19, and we have to set the budget for that time. As a principal and moving into a superintendent's position, talk about your 8 years at Whitman Hanson.
So one of the things that stands out is community. The students and the parents in this community really go above and beyond for what they value. The relationships that I've had with the kids, the relationships that I've had with parents, both in a positive and negative, have taught me things about who the people are in both towns. I think it's unique when you have a regional high school, when you have students coming from one town, from 2 towns joining together in 9th grade. It's funny, one of the things that we used to say at orientation is, look to your left and look to your right. You might not have known those people, you might be from the other side of the tracks, but you might be best friends with that student. So what I've learned from the 10 years of experience is that people are committed to education, people are committed to their kids, and they want to see the best opportunities for them and successful outcomes.
Jeff, in those years and with Ruth as a superintendent, I know that part of what you were trying to do throughout your tenure is to make sure the kids in Whitman and Hanson, when they came up through the elementary grades, were taught the same educational experience. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so one of the things that that I found when I came here in 2010 was there was some disparity of students from Whitman and students from Hanson in their elementary curriculum and the delivery of that curriculum. And one of the things that we did was we started with some vertical articulation, meaning K to 12 of somebody monitoring how everything was equitable. Meaning we had curriculum department chairs, and now we have K to 12 curriculum directors looking at what students do at Indian Head and students do at Conley and Duval are aligned, and they're doing the same thing. Same thing that at Whitman Middle and at Hanson Middle, and again, going back to the 2010 thing, we saw students coming in with Algebra 1, and just for example, Algebra 1 from Whitman and not Algebra 1 from Hanson. And we wanted to make sure that there was equity between that. We've worked hard to make sure that we have equity and parity in the two communities. And one of the things as superintendent this year, I'm going to work with the building principals to make sure not only is their curriculum aligned vertically, but their opportunities are aligned. Meaning, a situation came up and people are pretty transparent and pretty vocal about the fact that some schools have certain things, field trips for example, and others do not. We're going to make sure that there's equity in both, and through the building leadership teams, the new principals that we have here, we're going to have communication with parents and understand their needs so that a student who lives in Whitman and a student living in Hanson will have the same opportunities all the way through K to 12, or even now pre-K to 12.
Great, because it's a regional school district, and that's what goes on. You talked and you just touched on it, and I was going to ask it to you later, but now's the time. Principals, we have 4 new principals coming through. What should parents expect?
Parents should expect a lot of communication, some fresh ideas, and they're really strong leaders, both academically, and I'm mentioning a lot about relationships because I think what one of our team's responsibility is to really build relationships in the community, and you build relationships through being truthful, through being transparent, and that's a buzzword for me, so I say truthful, but I also believe in strong communication. From their building principals, there should be direct communication with parents. I firmly believe in a chain of command as well, so if parents are out there watching this, I'm very open to hearing issues. But I might kick you back to that building level principal because we really want to give them autonomy within their building to solve their problems and not micromanage from up above, so to speak, at central office. One of the things as far as communication that I've started to make sure that we're building on that transparency is a district Facebook page. I'm into social media a little bit, more Twitter than Facebook. I still don't do Instagram, but there is a district Facebook page. And believe it or not, within 2 days, I had close to 1,200 people joining in on that Facebook site. So you're going to see communication from me. No school, because I think that's a fact of life in New England. We might not have school on snow days. You're going to see when we post information, it's going to come out on that district website. But you're back to your question of your building principals. Dr. Darlene Foley is at Duval. Ms. Jill Dor-Cruteau is at Indian Head. Dr. Chris Jones is at the high school, replacing me. And Mr. Mike Grable, who is the 11-year assistant principal at Whitman Middle School, is replacing Mr. Farrow. But you're going to see that open line of communication from parents and really an experience that's about their children.
Jeff, you just talked a little bit about, and you touched on it, and again, I think it's a great perspective. You talked about chain of command and what should parents do if they have an issue. And could you just start at like a teacher level? Let's just say there is an issue with a student and a teacher. Where do you start? Do you start with the teacher?
You should start with the teacher. And I always tell parents when I was the high school principal, give teachers a 48-hour rule. If you send an email to a teacher, sometimes parents can get heated. I'm a parent, and I might get heated with a teacher or something. My child comes home with an issue, and you fire off an email to the teacher, and it's 4 p.m. on Friday. My expectation is that teacher is going to read that email on Monday, maybe Monday 2 o'clock after they've gone through a school day with students, and might reply to you Monday evening or Tuesday. You have to look at business days, and teachers do teach students all day long. They have certain times that they have time for preparation, and they have after-school responsibilities. So emails might not be returned right away. But if you do have an issue with a student and a teacher, an issue around a grade or maybe behavior, you should start with the teacher and then bounce it up to the assistant principal or principal of that building, depending on the issue. And then if you're not hearing back, and I think that communication piece is important, if you're not hearing back from a teacher within a certain amount of time, and I say 48 hours or 2 business days, a phone call or a call to the principal to make sure that that teacher did get that email. One of the things that I posted out on our district Facebook page is that our email filter, which produces our spam, has increased. We've actually tightened it up a little bit because there's been some significant viruses that have been out there. So some emails that are coming in are going directly to spam. So I sent something out to parents. I'll follow up with an email once school begins and all of our new students are registered to just double check. If you're not hearing back, fire out another email or give the teacher a call. Every teacher has a phone number and an extension, or call the main office of that building. And if you're not seeking satisfaction, if you don't get the satisfaction you feel you deserve or the communication that you feel you need, always call the assistant superintendent, Mr. George Farrow, or myself in my office, and we'll have a conversation.
You talked about communication, and I think communication is a big thing. Being on the school committee for as many years as I've been on, lots of times communication does get lost in the shuffle over a weekend or whatever. It does happen. And you just said, call the district. Now, when you call the district, I know some people get the recorder and they don't understand, because the phone system's a little bit different. It doesn't say right up front, use the teacher's name. Could you just go through that quickly on how it works?
So it'll come, if you call the district, it'll go to a direct line in technology.
Under 618-7020.
Correct. And that will have to be distributed to that building secretary. So when you might not get a live person, you might get a main office. We're having people filter those phone calls out. I think your direct access is to call the main office of the building that you're working with, or the main office line in my office, which is 618-7412. And you'll always get Michelle Lindbergh, the executive assistant to the superintendent. But I think as far as building conversations, sometimes it goes to that main line, but you should try to call your building directly.
Well, when the phone's answered, I know if you answer the phone and you're listening to the recording, you can just say the teacher's name.
Yes.
Sometimes, and it will pick up and go right to the teacher's direct line in the classroom.
Correct. And a teacher should have, and I'm unfamiliar with all of the elementary schools, but in the high school, which I'm pretty familiar with, the teacher will get a separate ringtone when they have a voicemail message. And you can leave that voicemail message for that teacher. I always think phone calls are okay, but I think an email sometimes is more direct because teachers see that pop up on their computer right away. A phone call, although a phone's in a classroom, they actually have to go over to the phone to access it. I'm lucky enough to have a phone on my desk, but most teachers do not have that.
Plus, the teacher is teaching.
Correct.
At times, and they're not going to answer the phone. They're in the middle of a lesson, and then they're not going to answer the phone. So just briefly, send them an email, follow the email chain, make sure that it gets received, go next to the assistant principal.
Assistant principal or principal of the building is very okay. And even if you call the secretary and ask and say, you know what, I sent an email to Mr. Hayes and he hasn't responded, that secretary might follow up with that teacher and say, hey, have you heard from Mr. Szymaniak? He sent you an email, have you, and just a careful prompt. But again, the one thing that I found this summer, and I missed quite a few emails, and I apologize to those folks that I missed, I went into my spam folder, and on a day, just as the the district superintendent right now, I'm averaging about 130 emails a day, and in my spam I had 74 at noon today. So I'm going through stuff and trying to reply. An average teacher is going to receive, 10 to 15 emails a day, depending on time of year. If it's grading time, I'm sure teachers receive more. And your building principals are getting between 60 and 70 emails a day as well. So there's a lot going on, not just from parents, but from outside sources, from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, from different folks. I had a couple of emails with our police and fire chiefs today trying to set up a meeting. So we're back and forth with that type of communication. But I just encourage parents to be patient, but be persistent. So if you need to get something done, it's okay to be patient, but if you're not seeing it, be persistent and go up the chain of command.
And you talk quickly about Facebook, because we're running right along here. I want to talk about some of the projects that are going on. You talked about Facebook. How do they reach the Whitman Hanson Facebook page?
So right now, if you just put in your Facebook search, Whitman Hanson Regional School District, you'll see the We Are WH. And you ask, it's by permission only. I grant permission, and Mr. Farrow and Michelle Lindberg and Lori Wright in my office are the administrators to that. Just ask to be accepted to the group. We'll gladly accept you in, and it's a method of communication for us. The other piece a parent had asked me is, will I continue to keep posting in Hanson Connect and Whitman Pride? I absolutely will. So I'll post it on ours. And for the community members that don't want to be part of the school Facebook page or the district Facebook page, we'll still get information out on the other two social medias that are out there for both Whitman and Hanson.
So I guess the request would be, please ask questions, please look for answers, please be positive, and please bear with us because some of that stuff goes to spam.
And correct. And we are also in the district at a time of transition. I have 4 new building administrators and a new central office administrator. So if we're not getting back to you right away, I think that persistency is there, but I ask for patience.
Okay. All right, moving on. I know Whitman Hanson's got a ton of projects, and a lot of people are very, very excited about what's going on. But when there's change, there is also that fear factor. Talk about what's going on at Whitman Hanson at the high school, with the loop, with the classrooms, with what's going on with pre-K. And
So some exciting stuff, and I'll start at the high school. So as you know, we've closed a building in district. McQuon School is now closed. The preschool has moved to the high school. We don't have little bodies in yet, but the classrooms, we've designed 5 classrooms for preschool students. New bathrooms in each classroom, a separate entrance, or not a separate entrance, but a door, a nice glass door on both sides of the preschool hallway, so you're not getting people to walk up and down the hallway. It's going to be card access only, so high school students will not have access to the preschool. The preschool director and the preschool teachers have been up there. There's quite a few pink boxes, and our pink boxes are the boxes we moved everybody from McQuon over. I was down there today. They're putting the finishing touches on those classrooms and making sure they're going to be ready for access 2 weeks from tomorrow. So we'll have those little students in. The other thing at the high school is a secondary roadway. Now, I think you were involved, and 5 years ago we did a traffic study at the high school.
Did.
And for anyone who's had a student at the high school, you know that when you enter the building, or you're coming to school in the morning, the traffic can back up onto Route 27. If you're not in line by 20:07 and the first bell's at 7:05, you might be late. So the traffic study group suggested we put in an access road, like a parent drop-off access and a bus drop-off access. We weren't able to do that until fiscally we were able to do through the town of Hanson in this building closure, put that in. The road should be done. They are paving this week. It will be done next week. And one thing that viewers should know is that we're going to do a walkabout next Monday at 1 o'clock on cable access. Tracy Seeley from the Express is going to be there. And we're going to go building to building to show all the projects that have gone and have been successfully completed over the summer.
I think it's also important to note the start times for the high school versus the start times for the kindergartners.
Sure.
So, because there's some confusion, Jeff, about at 7 o'clock, it's very busy. But the kindergartners don't start at 7, so can we touch on that?
So high school hours are 7:05 to 1:40. The first preschool starts at 9:30, and the second preschool, I believe, starts at 12:30 or 12:45. The first preschool dismissal is at 11:45 or 12, and I'm not exactly sure, but they don't coincide with high school dismissal, and the last preschool dismissal is at 3:30.
So nothing is going to, the changing and the transitioning part of students coming and going, because high school students, part of the problem that we've all run into with questions is high school students are going to be there running out in their cars, and the kindergartners are going to be they're locked in a separate part of the building.
Correct.
And their transitioning times are totally different, and they come and they go much different.
That's correct. And even on half days for high school and preschool half days are very different. So there won't be any interaction outside or in vehicles or anything like that.
Okay, moving away from the high school, Indian Head. Indian Head, the McQuon has moved part of the student body
Correct.
to Indian Head. Indian Head has moved to Hanson Middle. Let's start with McQuon to Indian Head.
So we now have a kindergarten, a grades 1, and a grades 2, grade 3, grade 4 at Indian Head. 3 and 4 were always at Indian Head, so we've brought in 3 new grades to Indian Head. We've had to do some renovation of classrooms. The teachers have all brought over their materials. So the classrooms are ready to go. We've also moved the 5th grade to Hanson Middle School, which really wasn't a heavy move. It was just a reallocation of class space at Hanson Middle School. The big piece at Indian Head that I think is important, and I want to thank the taxpayers and the capital projects, is our new entrance to Indian Head, which makes a more secure entrance, and we've done that at all 3 elementary schools. So instead of just being buzzed into the school and having to walk through up to the desk and meet the receptionist or the secretary there, you actually there's a set of double doors. So you're buzzed in, you meet, your ID is checked out, and then you're granted access to the building. What we found in the past is in Conley, in Duval, and at Indian Head, if I was a parent coming to dismiss my child, I'd get buzzed in and I could walk either way into the building. And as the new superintendent, that's not the securest way and not what we want in 2018. We want our students to be safe. We went through a capital project. Those projects are in place, and Indian Head will have, and Duval and Conley will have those new secure entrances, much like Hanson Middle, Whitman Middle, and as you know, the high school.
So the transitioning there the transition from McQuon to Indian Head has been completed. Mm-hmm. I know I had the opportunity to walk in and see all the new entranceways and the new bathrooms, and it's very, very nice. Mm-hmm. But the key to it is security. Mm-hmm. How about, I know that Duval and Conley, which I want to keep calling Forest Street because I'm dating myself. Mm-hmm. It was the Forest Street School, and Louise Conley was the principal. Mm-hmm. And that was many years ago. Talk a little bit about those projects.
Same thing. Conley, new secure entrance. So again, you're buzzed in through a second set of doors. Duval, the other piece at Duval, other than the security entrance, is some of the special education programs that were housed at Indian Head and at McQuon have moved over the tracks and are now in Whitman. So those classrooms had to be renovated to make sure that they had the accessibility and the facility things that is required for some special education students. The other piece at Indian Head that I just didn't touch on is that new playground.
I was going to ask you that next.
That new playground. I haven't seen it. I've seen the one at the high school, and I didn't touch on the new pre-K playground that's on the access road at the high school. Looks beautiful from afar. Their target deadline was actually
the 13th?
Was today, right? Today's the
14th.
Today's the 14th. It was yesterday, and I believe they hit their target. I was going to go off after the show, take a little tour of Indian Head to make sure it was there. But when I saw the packaging of the materials coming in, if I was a little kid, I'd be pretty psyched to be on that playground. The way our director of facilities, Ernie Sandlin, has really mapped it out, and he's done yeoman's work to make sure that these projects are in place. It's good, it's ready to go, and I just have to take a tour of that playground.
Well, I had the opportunity Sunday on the way back from Onset to pull into the playground at Indian Head, and it's pretty nice. It's right where the old basketball court was, and as you move to the right, there's going to be picnic tables and sort of a outside. You could run a classroom outside if you wanted to, and then the upper part of that parking lot has got a fencing system across it, so it cuts down a little bit of parking, but it gives the access for the children on that end of the field and that side of the field, coming out those back doors, which were changed. Ernie had just changed and made them more secure.
Which is absolutely correct. And the other thing is, with the upgrade of that playground, it's now ADA compliant. So we're compliant with federal law around the American with Disabilities Act. Prior to that, I think somebody could have called us and said, you know what, that playground's not accessible to me or my grandson or my child who's not a student here yet, but they want to have access to that playground. And now we are. And I think that makes me feel much better that we have access for all of our students, that they can enjoy our facility.
When we talk about playgrounds, and it's funny, I'm not trying to get off the educational piece, but a lot of people say playgrounds should last 30 years, should last 40 years. Average life of a playground is approximately 10 years. From what we can see because of ADA compliancy. And the cost is expensive, and it is extensive, but they wear out much quicker than the old days, and the educational piece to these playgrounds is much different than it was when playgrounds were built in the 60s and 70s, because I think McQuon has been through 3 or 4 playgrounds. I was on one of the committees when we built the old-fashioned style pressure-treated playground that after so many years splintered up, we had to tear it down. So I think it's important that people understand playgrounds are not forever. They have a shelf time life, in
They have a life
today's world.
expectancy.
Everything's
Correct.
changed.
Correct.
It's kind of like you buy a phone one day and 6 months later it's 10 phones later. The technology's changed, and it's changed in playgrounds. So I think it's important to tell people that, because it just happens. Anything else exciting going on in the district as far as projects? It seems like there's some upgrades going on here and there. I know it's infrastructure stuff at Conley and some maintenance upgrades, but just quickly, the day in the life of what happens in the summer of cleaning a building compared to what happens in a week. People don't see that. They don't get to see that, and we don't talk a lot about that at school committee.
So it is a challenge. It is a real challenge to clean. So just for instance, the high school just became accessible for our cleaning company last week. Because we had summer programs, and many of our schools have summer programs in there. So once you clean and prepare a wing or a floor of a classroom, you don't necessarily want a program to then go in on it. So when we back up to the first week of August and we open up our doors next Monday, all building administrators are going to be in, and all our new teachers are in for orientation. So we need to have our buildings accessible and ready to go, pretty much opening day ready by next Monday. So there's a lot of the day-to-day stuff that goes on. Our cleaning crews have been helpful, and our facilities crews have been helpful. This summer, moving classrooms around and just furniture, bringing from Mequon over to Indian Head and to Duval, and then unpacking boxes, has strained our folks. They've done a great job. Luckily, it's been a hot summer. Some of our schools are air-conditioned and some are not. But we're going to be ready. The building should be cleaned. We're doing that final walkthrough on Monday to see where we're at. And our company has been very amenable to when the superintendent says, does it have 5 coats of wax on that, or is that just 4? And they're willing to put that extra coat back on.
Your days seem very busy. You're new at it, and I don't mean new at it.
Yep.
The superintendency job, you're running around, you're taking care of 6 buildings. It seems like a lot of work. Excitement?
It's, every day's awesome. I'm hoping to bring a bunch of enthusiasm to the job. That's who I am as a person. I'm very excited to be the district leader. Now that I have a team in place with 4 strong principals and the 2 that are on board, we've talked quite a bit about where we're at and where we want to be. So I think we're moving forward. And that might seem cliche, but we can really take leaps and bounds. With town support, I'm going to be talking about where we are financially and what kind of programs we need to do to make sure we educate all students and give them the best opportunities, K to 12 or pre-K to 12, to be successful. Some of the things I was asked to prioritize in my interview was, foreign language and school counselors and safety, and all those come into play, and that's what we'll be talking about through the course of this year at school committee, is the district's priorities, the school committee's priorities, and where parents want to be. And I understand the burden on the taxpayer, and I respect that, and we'll be talking about that and understanding the liabilities.
Well, Jeff, we've got about a minute left before we wrap up here, and it seems like we could talk about school district for a long time.
Absolutely.
You hit on a Facebook page. I think that's very important. What are you hoping to see? And we've got to wrap it up. So quickly, what are you hoping to see and get out of a Facebook page? Positivity?
I think just parents being able to get direct communication without just a phone call. As soon as I know something, I'm going to pop it out there. So it's not a back and forth Facebook page. I'm not looking for comments. I'm not looking for questions. I'd rather have those direct to me than open to the public. But it's more of a way for me to communicate, and for George and the building principals to have one venue from the district to communicate with parents.
On the Facebook page, just very quickly, can they directly talk to you through the Facebook, or do you have a separate email, or how would you like it done?
So folks can email me always at my email address, which is on the site. I'm not going to spell it out for you. You can also follow me at capital WH_super. That's my Twitter handle. You can message me that way. And through Facebook messaging, you can always Facebook message me directly. But I'd rather stay away from the chatter on the site itself.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, we hope this Bring It On episode was somewhat informational for you. As always, if you have any questions, you can contact me at bobhayes4433@gmail.com, or you can call me on my cell phone at 617-538-0189. And always stay tuned for the next Bring It On.